Welcome, folks. Today on Prorian Media, we are joined by Professor Romi Singh, a globally recognized thought leader in regulatory science, multi-regional clinical trials, and AI-driven transformation. A professor of practice and founder of GRA Advisors, Romi played a key role in shaping the ICH E17 guideline and has consistently bridged science, policy, and execution to accelerate patient access to innovative medicines worldwide. He has also founded Zebrafish AI, focused on advancing AI and machine learning in regulatory sciences. Romi has been instrumental in developing the Reg Sciences and AI course at Northeastern University, which is why I reached out to him, and we are here talking to you about what this course brings to our community. So welcome, Romi. I'm glad to have you on Prorian Media discussing this course specifically.
Thank you, Jacob. I think you forgot to mention the important part, which is that you and I know each other for over 25 years.
Absolutely.
And our careers go back when we used to work together at Merck.
Yes.
So thank you for having me. I really appreciate that.
But today, we would like to learn from you what the rise of AI means for the future of regulatory sciences, and why do regulatory professionals need a more structured way to learn AI now? You have developed this course. What was the thinking behind this? What led to it? And why is it critical now? Could you share a little bit about that?
So there are two questions in two parts to your question. So let me start with what led me to create RegSci AI, Regulatory Sciences and AI. I'll start with the second one, and then I'll go to the first part.
Sure.
So my interest started almost over 6 years ago. Just at the time COVID hit, I was traveling like crazy. I was literally half the time on the road. And suddenly come March of 2020, I'm sitting at home and saying, what am I going to do now? I have no way to go.
Yes.
And I've been quite fascinated with predictive sciences as a curious activity, because we had been doing work on PTRS, especially doing a lot of work on predictive sciences and PRS. And I was also fascinated about how nondescript that is. It was really a binary kind of activity. Either you get approval, you don't get the approval. And I said, how does that help you? And so I was thinking about how can I become more specific about what does that really mean? So I started looking into some courses I could take, some Bayesian statistics, looking at some more predictive modeling. And I came across this course at MIT on AI. Remember, that was before 2023, before right. AI was what we know AI to be. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I took that course, and the nice thing was I was at Pfizer at that time, and Pfizer has fantastic colleagues. They're brilliant, smart, a lot of data scientists. And I was able to then partner with them on a couple of projects. And it became obvious to me that this is a field that is so new. Anything we do, anything we touch with AI,
yes,
is going to have an impact. Right? That is how I got into it. Now, what is also important to highlight here at this point is AI has been around for the last 20, 30 years. So the difference between what we talk about AI today is mostly the generative part, not the predictive part. So as I was looking at this, to be very myopic intentionally, because clearly people are talking about drug discovery and AI for many years, because if you remember Big Blue, the IBM model, Watson, they had a partnership with Pfizer almost 15, 20 years ago. Yeah. And this is all about changing the way AI and machine learning and the computers will change how drugs are discovered and developed. Didn't go much far, but it became obvious to me that there is a huge opportunity now, especially after 2023, that you can start applying some of these tools and techniques into regulatory science. And that's where I took a step back and said, look, let's bring this knowledge together. And after I left Pfizer and started my academic career, I said, no better place but Northeastern where I can start this particular program, which I can talk to you a little bit more if you're interested.
That's fantastic. What gap did you see that led to the creation specifically for this course?
Yeah. So when I took the course at MIT, certification from MIT, I had to do a project. And the project I selected was looking about how can I predict the probability of regulatory success, PRS and PTRS, using AI. And it became obvious to me at that point that PTRS is a very binary kind of activity. Regulatory approval. Either you get approval or you don't get approval,
yes or no,
or you get something in the middle. But still, right? It's very straightforward. And the way the numbers were being created and the percentages of probability of activity happening was so unscientific, in my opinion. If you ask 20 people the same question, you'll get 20 different answers.
Yes.
However, what was happening along the way is that there was almost a herd mentality. And having sat through hundreds of these PTRS and PRS meetings, what became obvious to me, the loudest voice in the room, the most quote-unquote senior experienced person is the one who would sway the opinion of PTRS. And I didn't like it. So I was thinking there should be a way where it is a less of a judgment call and more of a scientific validated methodology. I started looking at this.
Got it.
And so there's a whole field of sentiment analysis. I started looking at a project called POPPA, POPPA. Rather than saying that we will look at the endpoint, which is an approval or not an approval, my experience has told me that there are so many drugs that we had approved but we never launched, or we launched but not successful, and the main driver behind all of that was the label. Okay? So what POPPA stands for is a probability product profile approvability. And that we started tracking way early on, as soon as TPP was created. And we started tracking the sentiment of what the FDA was saying, and we had all the meeting minutes, and we had all the communication with the FDA, tens of thousands of unstructured data. So we put that into our system, and we started mining the sentiment of what was the FDA saying. Could we pick up some things ahead of time? Because that was the raw data, unfiltered, not what somebody in the position of leadership, either with the FDA or the company, would create a bias in our decision making, because we wanted machines to be completely unbiased, because they were essentially looking at unfiltered sentiment. And at that point, when we started presenting it to our leadership within the company, they got all very excited because there was a huge opportunity to this. And that was again between 2020 and 2023, before even ChatGPT came out. And so I saw the power of what AI was able to do, even the pre-transformer days. Okay? And at that point, I said, look, I'm going all into this one, started working on multiple projects, and it has been fun ever since.
Now, that's great. I'm very eager to learn about the course itself, but before I go into the modules of the course, I'm curious to know how you were able to develop a course that will be of value both to newcomers and to seasoned professionals, because that's what we see on the course introduction.
Yeah, so the idea is my advantage of not being a career academic. And it became obvious to me, and having three of the kids go through college and see how they've done in college, and I saw how their attention span was getting diverted. If I was able to hold their attention for 45 seconds, it was a win. Forget about holding somebody's attention for 45 minutes in a lecture room. So I had the advantage of not being brought up in the traditional teaching environment. So I said to myself, how do I create snippets of knowledge and then sew them together to put together the course? And in this whole idea was to, again, bring it to the people who actually are in the field of regulatory and also in the biopharma industry. One of the first things we teach in Module 1 is what is AI and what is not AI. We get into detail about predictive AI, large language model based AI, the quote unquote the new AI. And so all of that became very interesting to me. And as I was putting together the course, somebody asked me a question: what exactly is this course? Is it how AI is used in regulatory? or how
Okay.
AI is regulated.
Okay.
And for me, that was a huge kind of a wake-up call, because both of those are completely separate but very unmet needs in terms of the topic. So we have a general sense as how AI is being used across all the way from bench to bedside, right?
Okay.
But there are very few regulations out there that regulate how that is created. Hence, over the last 6 months or so, we have written over half a dozen papers, again on this whole evolving concept. Rather than saying you regulate a product, we essentially have advocated and created a pathway and a framework, which we call AI to ET, which is AI-enabled ecosystem for human therapeutics. Okay. If you just were to Google AI to ET, it'll pop up, our work will pop up. And again, there's a decision tree. When do you regulate? How do you regulate? And when you don't have we don't have regulations associated with AI-enabled ecosystem, what do you do? So it has two parts to it. One is where AI is used in regulatory sciences, and then how AI is regulated, AI-enabled ecosystem is regulated in biopharmaceutical companies. So that's again the gist of the course.
Thank you. That's very interesting, that distinction between where AI intersects in regulatory affairs and how AI should be regulated. Can I just maybe take a detour and ask you your opinion on how the regulators are doing with regulating AI and the use of AI in regulatory affairs?
So, big question. The headline answer is there's very little knowledge and scholarship on this topic. So, one important point to distinguish is on the medical devices, there is much more scholarship and literature and information on how to regulate.
That's right.
That's why when we created this course, I kept medical devices out of scope for the first version. I'm going to be including it in the new versions coming out in a few months.
Got it.
The reason I think is an important question is there is, first of all, no standard pathway. Unlike ICH, there's no common framework. The other important point to highlight is that even today, if you were to go and look and see how different regulatory agencies are doing, how they're regulating AI, there's very little knowledge. We published a paper, just came out a few months ago in Frontiers. The title of the paper is Federating the AI and AI Regulations Around the World. We essentially used AI to see what all the regulations and guidelines on AI-related activities are by major regulatory agencies.
Yes.
And then our goal is to now also democratize this knowledge. How do we bring it to people? And so it is a live process that we work with a company called Lunar Tree. And we essentially came up with a model where we're essentially able to now pull information in real time, and anyone can go and see what the regulations out there. So to answer your question, that was a huge problem. That's why we went and found a solution to this. And now we have a place where you can go and anybody can actually download the whole script. It's published, publicly available, and then can create their own system. But on the other hand, we are using it as part of our RegSci AI Academy within Northeastern. So the short answer is there's nothing out there, but we are again trying to create, as part of our RegSci Academy, we're trying to create this place where there could be one stop for getting all the knowledge you need for AI-related regulations.
Thank you. If I look at the course content, we have 6 modules, starting with core concepts of AI in regulatory sciences. It goes on to AI in drug discovery, in clinical development, manufacturing, operations, regulatory operations, pharmacovigilance, and then, of course, career pathways. This is an excellent introduction and preparation for individuals who prepare themselves to be well informed in the subject. But because the subject is also moving so fast, almost every day, even if I think about discussions that I've just had a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, there's just this incredible speed at which we get news, information, pivots, changes. How would the course help a participant to not only just take away from the course, but also to stay tuned or to have that curiosity mindset to be able to stack on their knowledge appropriately. Could you share your thought on that as the developer of this course?
You're absolutely correct. This is a fast evolving field. In fact, the course you put together today is actually obsolete tomorrow. And one of the things that I was very careful about as I was creating it, I didn't want to be sitting and updating it at this point on a daily basis. So some of the concepts are evergreen. Some of the topics need to be updated, but still absolutely relevant. Nothing has changed conceptually. So the feedback we have received so far has been absolutely fantastic. The way the course structure flows, as you just highlighted, starts with the basics. What is AI? What's not AI? So we create this whole idea about how do you regulate or not regulate, right?
Yeah.
We break the risk-based approach of regulating. This whole AI to ET format, we come up with that. And then we go from bench research and all the way to the actual submission lifecycle management. So basic research, drug development, which includes clinical trials and biostats and everything that is part of CDM, everything is part of that. And then manufacturing, we get into all the way from the very interface between preclinical to clinical to manufacturing, the whole process development, the supply chain, quality, everything that basically has become of this. So there are 7 or 8 different pillars we talk about. And then the most interesting and the most diverse one is what we call supportive functions. And supportive functions are where all the way from labeling to reg ops to regulatory intelligence, all of that is part of, and pharmacovigilance, all of that we have bundled as part of supporting functions. And so along the way, we show where AI is used and then how under those circumstances, the various regulatory agencies are regulating that. And we constantly keep bringing back the AI to ET concept, which is AI-enabled ecosystem. So we're not looking at the product. We're not looking only at the final product. We're looking at the product, the platform, the process, system. These 4 make up the ecosystem. We constantly keep bringing back to the fundamentals, saying that you don't look at only the final product. You look at the process, the platform, the product, and the system, right? And that's, we constantly go back and let people think. And our driving principle there is we want the students to think like a regulator.
Yes.
And fascinatingly, almost half of our students are regulators.
Fantastic.
And for them, seeing from the other side is a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
So the feedback we received is, we didn't think from that angle. We always thought from an angle of a regulator. But now we're thinking about how to regulate the unknown, for example. So it's been a very interesting kind of feedback loop for us too.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that candidly, Romi. I think that, and it truly also emphasizes how much of a partnership there is on this particular subject. It's not one telling the other what to do, but it's really a joint journey going forward. Where does it evolve from there? What would be your advice to those interested in the course as well, those who are approaching their continued learning on the subject?
No, Jacob, it's almost turning out to be like a promo piece for RegSci AI course, and it wasn't intended. I think it's interesting that you bring up those questions. I can tell you that the cohort of students that are coming through, interestingly, is a very good mix. There are some people who are coming in completely from areas that are not even related to biotech. They're just curious and they want to get into the field of regulatory science and biotech. They are trying to get themselves educated. And the feedback we received from them is that they've never seen anything that shows from bench to bedside activity, this whole ecosystem, right? Then we have folks who have been in the industry but want to change. They want to learn some new techniques. They want to see how AI is applied. Then we have regulators themselves. So I think you're seeing that from the other side. The way I would look at this is, you can say you upskill you reskill,
Hmm.
or I've come up with a new term which I use in my course, which is I call off-skill, right?
Ah,
And off-skilling, it doesn't exist right now. The word doesn't exist, but the common sense way is
yes.
saying that I have a skill, I want to upskill, or I had a skill, I want to reskill, but I had some complete different skill and I want to bring new skills and I want to off-skill that one, right? That's how we look at this. And I'm seeing more off-skilling going on right now.
Thank you for answering both those questions. If I can go to a broader level, maybe sign off with these few questions as an expert in and as a pioneer in thinking about AI in regulatory sciences, which parts of regulatory work do you think will be automated and which will remain human? It's probably not the right approach or the right question to ask because we want to see how it will actually reshape regulatory work. But we have a journey between now and then. And during that journey, just to not keep blinders on and to be cognizant of what those steps are.
So I'd actually did a survey on my LinkedIn post on this question about where do people think things are going, and I was very surprised to see the output, right?
Okay.
I think, and by the way, this question is so relevant. I'm about to post after we finish talking. I have something ready to post on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Essentially reacting to a report that came out from AI. OpenAI comes up with this, what they call jobs report, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that, they talk about the impact of AI on jobs. And I've been following this for the last 4 or 5 years. One of the main topics of Module 6, going back to the course. In that one, they actually talk about, they say it's going to impact on 4 levels. And in my LinkedIn post, I essentially have looked at this and said, the first one, there is no significant impact right now. The second is the impact where they call AI augmentation, okay, where AI supports humans to do work faster and better. The no impact one is that means it's not that there's no impact. The human critical judgment mostly will stay unchanged.
Okay.
In the AI assisted augmentation, the AI supports humans to work better and faster.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next level of evolution is AI led. Essentially, AI is the main actor.
Yeah.
And humans are in the loop, or essentially they're the experts in the loop. We talk about it again in the course.
Yeah.
And see, here the AI generates outputs, humans review and validate. And the final version of what they call is fully automated, right? And the fully automated version is AI performs end-to-end in a standardized low-risk process. And essentially that is all
with no
they do,
supervision.
and human again at the end signs off on this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So in my post you'll see on LinkedIn is I say this year in 2026, the near term, I'm assigning based on my experience and based on some of the work research that we have done, where we see the work moving. And then in 2 years where it goes, and then where it goes in 2030. So I think if you look at that particular framework, it makes it look easier to understand. So where the work today is actually spread out all over the place. We are definitely not in the 4th category of fully automated. Okay.
Right.
We are more and more using the AI-led human in the loop approach, where AI generates the outputs, we validate it. Majority, over 50% of the work is actually AI supports it, whether it's writing CSRs or writing reports or putting together all the it's augmented work, right? Areas where, when I say there's no significant impact at this point, where AI is still not active, it's like when you have to make a judgment call. For example, calling out a benefit risk ratio, or deciding whether the signal that you see from an AE perspective, is it related to the medication, right? Ethics related decisions, right? You can't use AI for this particularly. Those are places where, again, from a impact perspective, those are the places where I see significant impact of AI over a period of next few years. But there are few places where there'll be very much still human-led and human-impacted areas.
Thank you. What would be our message in terms of realistic expectation of the regulatory function that is adopting AI, maybe at this moment just experimenting with how best to use it.
Yeah. So working in big companies and trying to say, I want to use AI in my workplace, you're restricted by your systems and your processes that your IT team has created for you, right? So
Right.
there's almost a misconception where you say, hey, I'm using Copilot and I'm using AI. That's a little bit of augmentation, helping you summarize notes. What I would suggest, and that's what I advise, become AI literate to a point where you can speak fluently. That's the first thing.
Right.
There are so many courses you can take. You can read books and you can take courses, and there are some nice courses that you can take outside of formal certification, for example, just to educate yourself. There's fantastic courses on Coursera. There's some nice courses on LinkedIn. There's some nice courses that are given completely for free. So just become AI literate. Okay, that's the first step. And once you become AI literate, start using AI as your co-partner. Assume for a fact that your job will be disrupted. No question. No question. Assume that's a going assumption. Your job will be transformed. Leaders in AI say it no longer will be a job. It will be a role. So the way the companies are moving, you won't have a job. Like and you came up through the system where we had a job description. The way the world is moving right now, there will be no job description, there'll be role descriptions. And you'll be able to move from one role to another, where you use AI as a support, as your co-partner, as a co-pilot, right? Don't think that you are safe. You will be impacted one way or the other.
Yeah. That's a brilliant framing of how AI is going to change our work. Another term which is well accepted in the broader business world is constraint description, because you are now not solving a task but a barrier or a constraint. What would be your advice to a decision maker, their expectations of the use of AI with their regulatory teams?
So it's interesting that you asked me this, because we just submitted opinion paper on this topic, and this is directed at the C-suite. Okay, I'll give you the 50,000 foot view on this one. Let me frame this at a high level. If you're a leader of the company, I think you should encourage your staff to come up with internal solutions, not to look at individual co-pilot activities as the end all and be all of AI, but rather to say, how can you make this whole ecosystem and make the co-pilot to become the autopilot? That's the way to go forward.
That's excellent framing, very useful for all of us. I really appreciate your insights and also your willingness to share more about the course, the thought behind it, what to expect, and also how to go about not just with the course, but during and after the course too, at a broader level. So I thank you very much, Romi. I wish the participants the best, and we are going to tune in and learn along with you on this very important subject. So thank you for coming and being with us today.
Thank you, Jacob.